Hello, everybody. We're here in Pittsburgh again. Ran down to Atlanta for a couple days, through Charlotte, through West Virginia. Beautiful country. We're back in P-Town, the Burg, Steel City, and picking up our community spotlight video series. This video is going to be a spotlight on 3 of the great communities in this town. A lot of people don't know about. We're trying to get the word out. So we just take them one at a time. We talk a little bit about the history, the context of the name, and the history and what is going on there today, etc., etc. And in the most recent videos, we've been focused on the northwest part of Pittsburgh, going up the Ohio River, and looking at towns. Today we're going to look at, in this video, Glen Osborne, Haysville, and Coraopolis. Somebody help me if I didn't pronounce those correctly. Now, of course, as always, this is a Joe Ditzel parody. Now, I don't know the facts about these towns. I'm from Ohio and Los Angeles. But the person that I got this information from was behind me at one of those big box stores that has everything you ever want to buy, including groceries. I was there getting granola bars, and they were behind me in line. We started talking about the work I'm doing, and he said, "Hey, man, you should check out these 3 towns that we're going to go through in this video." And he gave me some background on them, and I who knows? I mean, this was in the town of Houston, Pennsylvania, if you've ever been to Houston. And he seemed like a Pittsburgh local, like this part of the state local. I mean, mostly I was going by, he had a University of Pittsburgh baseball cap that said Pitt U, right? And then he had on a T-shirt, even though it was kind of cold part of the morning. He didn't have a jacket or a windbreaker or anything. This is very early morning. He had on a T-shirt that said, University of Pittsburgh. We don't take just everybody. Which, all right. And so, anyway, and then in other words, he seemed like a local. So let's go with it. If you know different, let me know. So first on our list is Coraopolis. Now, Coraopolis is on the, you might say, the southern side of the Ohio Rivers that comes into the 3 rivers confluence. And Coraopolis was not originally named Coraopolis, which is kind of interesting. Coraopolis, if you break down the word, it means coral city. That's what it means, coral city. And it got that name because the coral sales in the area were beginning to increase and eclipsing all the other businesses in town. So as coral sales, as people began to buy coral, and by coral I mean the coral that you see underwater, typically in oceans, but in this case they were growing coral in the Ohio River. So they were harvesting coral that they had seeded and grown in the Ohio River. Again, it's typically a sea, in the sea, but in this case, in the freshwater Ohio River. Because of the unique nature of the coral and the color and the texture, it was getting worldwide acclaim. And the local communities at a certain point said, we have to change the name to reflect the #1 revenue generator in these parts in the last 200 years. So that way people connect the name of the city with the product that is already getting worldwide acclaim. So somebody around 1920 stood up in a what do they call it, a city council meeting, a community meeting, and said, I'd like to change the name to Coraopolis. Guys, you wouldn't believe the turmoil it created. Because before it was the coral selling center of the United States, and in some say the world, Coraopolis, right there on the edge of the Ohio River as it meanders down toward Pittsburgh, was the bottle cap manufacturing center of the country. More bottle caps were made in Coraopolis than any other town, and it followed in a long tradition of hard goods manufacturing in the Pittsburgh Valley, in the Allegheny area, Allegheny Valley, Monongahela Valley, Ohio Valley, whatever you want to say. In the Three Rivers Valley area, that was the number one bottle cap manufacturer and was recognized by the industry and by bottlers worldwide as having the best bottle caps. But as time went on, a lot of the young guns in the companies started moving to the West, and by West I mean Lodi, Ohio, or Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and taking their bottle cap expertise with them and starting their own operations. So what happened? Of course, the bottle cap operations in Coraopolis went down, and what used to be called Bottle Cap City was now named Coraopolis, as a new star rose on the horizon, and that's the pristine and uniquely colored coral that they were growing in the waters of the Ohio River and harvesting and selling worldwide. That is amazing, guys. I would never in 100 years know that story until that guy told me at the big box store down there in Houston, Pennsylvania. Number 2 on our list is Glen Osborne. Glen Osborne is a unique community on the other side of the river from Coraopolis, and of course is named after Glen Osborne. Well, who the heck was old Glen? Well, Glen Osborne was one of the original people that left Pittsburgh and started moving upriver, considered a pioneer, a frontiersman, an outdoorsman, a hunter, a gatherer, a fisherman. The guy could pick off a fly wing off of a fly for 100 yards with a shotgun, with his trusty sidearm, and some say he could even do it with a knife. And one tale tells the story of he tried to pick the wing off of a fly with his knife at 100 yards, and he missed. He cut the fly in two, and 2 halves of the fly fell to the ground, and all of a sudden the people that he was with at the time burst into applause. This amazing outdoorsman, Glen Osborne. And so he was also a musician, and he came from England originally, and developed a lot of the what do they call sort of bluesy country music, bluegrass. He developed a lot of the bluegrass music that is unique to the Pittsburgh valleys, all right, the Pittsburgh rivers. And so a lot of the country music you hear, the bluegrass, a lot of that native music, in fact, even the square dancing originated from a lot of his work, a lot of his songwriting. And in fact, if you were to trace back his family to England, there's a relative of his that is descended from the same Osbourne family that was also big in music and emerged in the heavy metal rock scene in the late 60s, early 1970s. His name is Ozzy Osbourne, and he was in a band called Black Sabbath. So, of course, the town wanted to tap into the fame of the descendant of the guy that named their town. And so they asked Ozzy to play at a metal fest, the first country music, bluegrass, heavy metal fest on a grassy knoll that overlooked the river. On a spring day, it would be rock and roll music, beautiful vistas of the river, plenty of cold refreshments, and it was going to be a great time. They call it, you've heard of Rockapalooza. This was country metal. What do they call it? Let me look at my notes here. Yeah, Country Metalzilla. And they had a big monster they made out of paper mache and steel girders that looked like a little bit like Godzilla, but if he had the ability to square dance, if you can picture that, and then he had on a hat. So at Country Metalzilla, Ozzy did come and fulfilled the heavy metal portion of the bill, but a lot of the locals started demanding that Black Sabbath play country songs metal style. And honestly, Ozzy said no. He just said, I can't do it. I don't know what you're talking about. I think we have a breakdown in communication. So the Country Metalzilla show had to stop halfway because they just couldn't. It just was one of those unplanned things that Ozzy said no. He walked off. He got back in the bus. They drove to Pittsburgh International. They were on their way home to England. This is before the all of this stuff going on in L.A., all of that TV show, all of that stuff. This is back in the day. This is probably, what, 87, 97, right in there. So that was not necessarily a blemish on the community, but certainly not as huge success as they wanted it to be. But I give props to those people that organized it and put it together. It was a great idea. And then right down the river toward Pittsburgh, you have Haysville. Now, Haysville is and has always been named Haysville. And originally, if you had a farm in this area, you needed hay, you got it from Haysville because they were producing hay, and that was their number one crop, and the only thing they produced, anything within the city limits, had to do with hay. And it not only had to do with hay, eventually after the first 10 years of the town's existence, they made sure it was only hay. The mayor at the time worked with the city council to push through a law that said only hay can be made in Haysville. They wanted a singular crop. They wanted to count on one revenue source, even though that's not typically advisable. The guy that originated the idea, he said, if we don't focus, we're going to die. Focus or die. And they came out with these signs. They put them on all the lawns around Haysville, focus or die. And it had a picture of a bale of hay. And then it had a guy just, kind of like he was dead, like laying on the hay. So focus or die. And that worked, guys, because from 1810 to 1890, 1920, right in there, they were the number one hay producer in the region for that time period. And people in Haysville were getting rich. I mean, there was a guy that built a mansion. Not only did it have the mansion and 3 guest houses and a 12 to 15 horse stable, the whole thing was made out of bales of hay. Instead of bricks or stones, he made bales of hay. Unbelievable. The whole house was made of hay. He called it the Hay Mansion. And guys, like the same story though, time evolves. The wheel of time doesn't always run down the freeway at 75 miles an hour, or if you're in Pittsburgh, probably they're driving closer to 95. The wheel of time actually is a slow tick, tick, tick. And eventually the hay industry changed and moved to the Midwest and the Western states. California, Colorado all became big hay producers, and Haysville started to take a downturn. Now, to their credit, they started to bring another industry online, just like the other towns, to take the place of hay so that they can continue their prosperity, and that one guy could continue to live in his mansion of hay. And what they did was they started to greet each other around town in a new manner. Instead of, hey, how you doing? Instead of, hi, how you doing? How's it going? How are the kids? How are the cows? Is Bessie popped out that calf yet? Like that. They just started saying, hey, how are you? It used to be, hi, hello. Okay? And they changed it to, hey. And in fact, they put through again a law that said if you didn't say the word hey, how you doing? Hey, how are you? Hey, how are the kids? How is grandma? Hey, how's that son of yours that just can't seem to stay out of the pokey? Is he stealing hubcaps still? Hey, how is your grandma? Is she still sniffing that snuff? Stuff like that. And hey. So what happened? It became the number one reason for the existence of Haysville. Because what do people want to do? They want to have fun, and they came down to Haysville from all over Pennsylvania, all over Ohio, including Youngstown, where people never usually leave the city. They just stay there. They prop their feet up on the couch, and they say, turn on the TV. Let's watch some Wheel of Fortune. They got people from Youngstown to come down to Haysville just so they could walk, because people want to participate. This was one of the original communities that realized that interactivity is key to the success of a community. And so people would come from Ohio, from as far away as other states like Ann Arbor, Michigan. People were coming from Skokie, Illinois. And the reason they came from such far distances in a time where that trip might take a week, okay? They wanted to walk around town and say, hey, how are you? And wave and just wave their arms in the air like a crazy person, because it made them happy. And happiness is an elusive thing, but if you can provide a vehicle for it, people will pay you big money for it, and that's what happened in Haysville. Haysville changed the signage around town to where it said, "Welcome to Haysville," with the emphasis on the hay, and it had a waving hand and a big grin on a farmer's face on the sign. And guys, they even got famous people to do it on the social media at the time, which was known as the classifieds. So you had presidents and big-time actors alike taking out ads in the classified section saying, "Hey, from Los Angeles," right? Be like Gregory Peck, "Hey, from LA." Okay? And it became a nationwide sensation. And to this day, the guy that lives in the House of Hay, his descendants still live there, and it has not burned to the ground because it's a complete fire hazard. Guys, that's the end of this tour of 3 communities that everybody should take a new look at, because Pittsburgh is full of these gems, and we're going to highlight them. And once again, this is a Joe Ditzel parody. Come back for more. Yeah. We'll leave the light on, and then we'll ask you to identify yourself, because I mean, come on, look at you. You're a security risk.